We have a battle between Sibling mini LEDs with the Hisense U7K versus the flagship U8K, both at 65 inches. Up next.
I've seen things people wouldn't believe.
Hey, what's up guys? I'm Brian. This is Tech Therapy. Thank you so much for joining me as I compare these siblings, the Hisense U7K versus the U8K. The U7K is the mid-tier, the U8K is the flagship. I'm discounting the UX, which is the flagship of the entire lineup, as it's a dream TV you will see on this channel very, very soon. I promise you that. But for right now, the U8K is the flagship. When comparing two TVs from the same manufacturer, it's actually quite easy to compare them as you put them in the same presets, you set them the same, and see who wins. Now, the U8K being the flagship is, for me, obviously the better TV, though the U7K is also excellent. The question you want to ask yourself is the U8K worth the premium? The differences in price. The sound on both these TVs is excellent, so the price difference isn't really about saving that money to buy yourself a sound bar. Where the price difference for me is interesting is if the U7K is good enough or close enough, will the price difference warrant you going with a larger size? Say going a 75-inch U7K versus a 65-inch U8K, 55 or 65, so on and so forth. So it's not really just about, is the U8K worth the premium and price? Is the U7K good enough to warrant going with a larger size? This is a very fun matchup. I reviewed both these TVs on the channel. I think they are both excellent. Not only are they both great value, but they do have very high-end performance in both movies, streaming, upscaling, and gaming. I will do a separate gaming comparison in the next few days, but for right now, let me know what you think. Let me know who you think wins, and if the U7K is either good enough to go larger or if the U8K is worth the premium. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoy. All right, guys, we look at both the U7K on the left and the U8K on the right. Before we get into demo material, I want to show you the build quality of each in a bright room. Excuse the cable management, but you're looking at the U8K on the right, U7K on the left, matching them up as well as I possibly can. Right now, looking at the legs or the feet, more pronounced Hisense logo. Same remote, backlit. Now you have a larger, or should say higher stand there compared to the more streamlined U8K, and a less pronounced Hisense logo. The U8K's logo is a little more visible when watching the TV, but it's not anything that is interrupting the experience. They both look very good in a bright room. Looking at the back of the U7K versus the U8K, they do look very different from the back, more similar from the front other than the stand and logo. Subwoofer here, more pronounced speakers. You have the larger speaker and subwoofer combination on the back of the U7K. Hard plastic. Here you have the more beefy plug detachable for the U8K versus the smaller U7K. U8K feels slightly more premium. Bezels are pretty much the same size. They are both mini LEDs, so neither of them are particularly thin. But looking at the back, you tell me which you prefer. One more shot at the front. Again, both are very good bright room TVs. They are both very bright and very vibrant. From far away, they look virtually the same in terms of their builds. U8K, slightly better build quality, more heavy-duty plug. Looking at the Spears & Munsell calibration disc for our first demonstration. We will be in filmmaker mode throughout this first part. I'm going to show you quickly the prices of the 55, 65, and 75 U7K versus U8K. As I mentioned in the beginning intro, is that you're looking at the prices being where a 65-inch U7K costs about as much as a 55-inch U8K. So determination is, do you want to go with a larger U7K or a smaller U8K? Is the U8K worth the differences in price? Or, as I mentioned, go with a larger U7K for the same price of a 65 versus 55, so on and so forth. Spears & Munsell demo material is top notch. The disc is amazing, calibration disc. And you can see the differences in the picture quality between the two, especially in this shot where the U8K has a brighter specular highlight. Again, we are in filmmaker mode in HDR. Why we're in filmmaker mode is that it's a little easier on the black levels. Both have very good local dimming, especially from the center of the screen, from your seating position. The U8K does have better local dimming. It is brighter. There are times when you're looking at it where the U8K may appear a bit more washed out. I don't really see that in person. However, during the short video trailer that accompanied this video, some of you preferred the U7K. Here, there is more a brighter image on the U8K. You can see it at the end of this shot as well. And brighter here for the U8K in that transition. Now, what I can see throughout my time with both the U7K and the U8K is brighter, has a better local dimming, and there are times when it appears more colorful. However, the combination of a brighter image looking more colorful at times makes the U7K seem to have a higher contrast ratio. Almost looks like it gives it more depth, but that really is just how you're seeing it through the camera. The U7K holds its own throughout this video, but in most cases the U8K looks better in person. So what I just said is the brighter and more color can almost give it a washed out image compared to the less bright U7K. As I mentioned before, both TVs actually sound amazing, giving the slight edge to the U8K as it has the more prominent speakers, which give you more of a surround feel. But why I mention the difference in value is typically you'll go with the cheaper model and grab yourself a soundbar. Here, I rather see you get the size if you have the room. 8 minutes into the video, I will tell you if you want the better TV, that would be the U8K. But you seeing this demo material will let you or have you make the decision yourself on if it's better enough to justify the price difference, which isn't a huge price difference, but it's there. More color on the U8K. Again, they're set up exactly the same. Only difference that I changed in a filmmaker mode is going from local dimming medium to high and warming up the image. All of the different presets will be filmmaker, theater, standard, and the vivid preset in only one demo. All of them have been changed their color temperatures to warm and local dimming to high. There are times where the U8K's local dimming is obviously more pronounced and can be more aggressive. There are times where it can crush slight detail that the U7K doesn't, simply due to the lack of dimming zones in comparison to the U8K. You'll see it here in the star field, where the U8K has less stars on the right side. I would recommend if you do encounter that, go from a local dimming high to medium, and you should be able to see more stars. But that one shot was one of the only shots I encountered where the U8K's local dimming hurt it. As I mentioned, I'll follow this up with some gaming. Spend an entire video comparing the game modes. To me, there is a difference in how the game mode looks. And why I like to wander in different presets is, and you see there the colors are very different though they're in the same preset. Now here I'm going to show you what I call flexibility of image. We are going to be in SDR for these next two demos, but they are both very saturated. I want to be able to show you how they go from most saturated or most poppy with their vivid or standard down to your filmmaker mode, even energy saver mode. The reason I want to show you SDR versus HDR through the presets is they do add a theater day that is missing in HDR. And why I use these two demos is they are very saturated. They can be made to look off the charts, crazy nuclear green, and then more realistic. At the end of this demo, when I'm done with this portion, we will stay in filmmaker mode, and in the next one we will stay in standard. Why standard is a very important preset is it's the preset that these TVs ship in. You can make standard look off the charts poppy, vibrant, or you can make it look more filmic. It's really up to how you work the presets. Now for me guys, I am not a filmmaker mode snob in regards to accuracy. I like a little bit of everything, and I want to be able to show you a little bit of everything. Here in filmmaker mode, it's amazing how you can take that very saturated demo and knock it back down to something more realistic. And in shots like this, you can see where the U8K's brightness pulls away. At the end of this particular demo, you're going to see a champagne bottle. And what I love about what the Hisense does is able to control the blooming without dimming the image. It finds that balance between leaving it bright, not dimming it, but also keeping blooming to an absolute minimum as we are looking at a mini LED. You'll see that transition start here. When it comes to black levels, you saw this in the Spears and Munsell. They're very slow transitions. This transition is very quick. And the crown here exhibits very little in regards to blooming, keeping the crown still bright. Now, this is our second SDR. Again, I'm doing SDR to show you the different presets. I want to include all of them for you, including theater day and theater night. I do like the theater preset the best on Hisense. Another very saturated demo. And we will pause here and show you the different presets. I love this shot. Again, it pops. As we jump through the presets, you be the judge on what you prefer. Now, you'd be surprised, but many people that buy TVs keep them out of the box. That would be your standard preset here. To me, filmmaker mode is an excellent mode. I tend to prefer that on older films, more filmic films with a strong grain structure. I do like theater, as I mentioned before, in Hisense's lineup. In SDR, as I mentioned also, you have a theater day and a theater night. Most manufacturers will offer a couple extra presets in SDR. Now, the differences in image you're seeing here are what I call flexibility image. The differences in HDR are just as vast. A knock I've had on companies like Hisense and TCL is a lack of flexibility of image, meaning that more value-based brands tend to have a couple presets. They don't look very different from each other, and you typically can't change the image. Last few years, Hisense has rectified that, and you can change the image to your liking. We are leaving it here purposely saturated and vibrant. Very detailed image. We move into this next portion. We are going to keep it in the standard preset, which will exhibit a bit more blooming than the filmmaker mode that was in the Spears and Munsell portion. But instead of haloing around the objects, which you'll see as it brightens it slightly the entire frame, U8K does have better local dimming. There are times where the brightness on the U8K is evident. There's times where it doesn't feel that way. Here we are in complete white. The left side U7K looks a bit cooler. And here they look nearly identical. Special shout out to our very good friend Jennifer Gala and her second channel, the HDR Super Channel. A lot of the content you're seeing in this video is hers. Check the description below for both of her channels, and please consider liking and subscribing and sharing her amazing work. Why I like this particular demo is the detail in the fur and the whites. I should have mentioned the Spears and Munsell portion of the disc was at 2,000 nits. And here in Jennifer's material here, to me, there's more depth on the U7K. This is where, as I mentioned before, the more color and the brightness of the U8K can give it a different look that maybe doesn't help it. That would be one shot where I'd prefer the U7K. You can see also in this shot where it's brighter, more vibrant, but you may prefer the U7K. 15 minutes in. What I love about comparing, again, the same manufacturers is that makes you, or gives you the ability to determine if you should go with a larger size. Is the U7K a good enough performer to say I rather go with the 75 versus 65 or 65 versus 55 of the U8K? But if you want the best possible version of this lineup, which would be the U8K flagship, that's where you make the determination that you'll pay the few extra $100 and then go for that. A bit better build quality, better sound, though the U7K sounds fantastic. See here, even though the U8K is brighter, there's a little bit more depth in the U7K not being as bright, if that makes sense. Now, in non-demo material, which I can't show you movies on YouTube due to copyright, most times I preferred the U8K. But if I had to choose between a larger U7K or a smaller U8K, I'd make that determination, as I do like larger TVs. But it really comes down to where your TV will be placed and if you have the space. If you need a 75, U7K is an excellent choice. I'd rather get the larger TV for your needs. This is all Jennifer's work. This is a very challenging demo here as well. We get skin tones. And because we're dead center, the blooming is controlled beautifully. Now, how important is viewing angle to you? You see the colors pop, the paint and makeup. Jennifer's work is phenomenal. Again, check the description and see how these demos look on your TV. I love the transition of this shot. I should have mentioned we are now in the theater preset, which I think is a good mixture of vibrancy, saturation, while trying to remain somewhat accurate. What's also interesting with the Hisense is actually the energy saver mode doesn't look bad at all. In some cases, I preferred it to filmmaker mode. Yes, it deepens the image a lot, but it deepens it, but leaves some of the processing enabled. See this shot right here. And this transition here. A lot of times, again, with any TV testing, it is content dependent. Processing on the Hisense, the upscaling is now pretty good. And in gaming, you have 144 hertz, 120 hertz, a more elaborate game bar. But what are your thoughts as you're watching this? And are you willing to give companies like Hisense a shot? Are you focused on the big three? Are you looking now at these companies that are on the rise, that are offering, again, high-end specs and high-end performance, but still keeping that value? See, the logo is more refined on the U8K, but the local dimming is excellent on both. Moving into our vivid preset that a lot of you guys like. I do show this in all of my videos when showing new TVs. Some people watch TV like this. I am not here to judge. If you're happy, I'm happy. Why I love this demo is they are very fast transitions. And the reason I put them in a vivid preset is to see how they struggle with that quick transition. They both do very well, I might add. Now, at the 20-minute mark, where are you in the comparison? Again, as I mentioned in that short trailer, some people preferred the U7K by quite a bit. Moving into my favorite check for black bars due to the aspect ratio of Jennifer's content here, this is my filmic portion. Why I like this is in this demo, you'll see bright hit the black bars. Being dead center, they are both midnight black. So important when in HDR. SDR, less so. SDR, the local dimming tends to be on all TVs more measured and more accurate. But here with HDR, you can see where they both light up off angle, but I am up and looking down. But look how off angle I have to get to make them both light up. You're going to see me pan back, and then they disappear again. And that's without me messing with the exposure of the camera at all. Now in SDR, because the highlights aren't as bright, you see black bars tend to be fine in a lot of TVs. It's HDR where you have to check those black bars. When something bright gets near, do they light up? And they both do an excellent job, especially dead center. Now we are wrapping up again, saturated, poppy, accurate, vibrant. What are your thoughts? Do you go with the cheaper U7K? The more premium U8K, brighter, more zones? Or do you go with a larger U7K? Let me know what you think in the comments. For me, because I have the space and would like a larger TV, I would go for the U7K, or obviously just buy a larger U8K. But that's what you have to think about in terms of comparing these two. If money is no object, I would go with the larger U8K. But I think we can agree the U7K does an amazing job. And this lineup by them, U6, U7, U8, all mini LED, that is unheard of. You'll see the UX on the channel in the next few weeks. But for all intensive purposes, the U8K is the flagship. And there are times, even though they are matched perfectly in terms of color, they look very different. All right, guys, I am Brian. This is Tech Therapy. Thank you so much for watching. Please consider liking and subscribing. Love you guys. Take care.